Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about the REST API and we are going to implement this in the Flask. So what exactly a REST API? So REST API is a representational state architecture. So basically if you want to describe, represent any resource, for example, it can be a image or it can be a employee record in the database. So these all are the resources and we wanted to use them to um, modify them, right? You want to do some operation on them, either you want to update them or you want to get the data or you want to delete the data. So here it defines a set of rules to how we can access this data and how what are the generic methods to perform on them to modify this data. For example, we thought to work on an example called restaurant menu, right? So for example, this menu is a resource. Then how we can access that menu and what are the methods which we can perform on that menu? The what are these methods are called as the resource methods. So get, put, post, delete. So these are the four operations which we can do on a resource. Then how the first one will be a resource identifier. So how do you identify the resource is nothing but menu. So we can identify this using a resource identifier. Here you can see generally we call it as a URL, but if you break it down, the first part will call it as the base URL and the second part will be the menu. So this endpoint will identify the resource on the server. Now let's create one simple Flask application where we will try to fetch the menu under display. Okay, first we'll import the Flask. Now we'll create an object of Flask. Now let's define the main. Now we want to start the application. Now this application Flask has a default server. When you call app.run, it will start the server as well. But we don't want to start server only. We want to handle the request. That is, we want to, if your user is requesting for some resource, you want to handle that request. For example, it is simple to handle any URL mapping. So you just need to do root, and for example, user is requesting for menu, then you can, so this should be in string. We are typing define get menu. This is a method to return. Then here we can say menu equal to, for example, biryani 100 rupees, buttermilk 10 rupees, and you want to return. So if user is calling get menu, then he should get the values of this, right? So let's open Postman and try to do it. First we have to run the application. So the application is up and running on the URL. This is the base URL. So just take it and hit. So you can see we are getting error 404 not found. So here the URL we are trying to query doesn't being handled on the server side. So if you can see, we are only handling if a URL containing a root menu. So if you add slash menu to the URL, you can see we are getting the response. So whenever when you request to handle, we need to map the URLs. So if you map the URL, then it will come here and it will call the corresponding method. But if you don't handle the request, then we will get a 404 error. So this is a simple application which we can develop in the Flask. We'll learn more about the flask in the next coming videos.